mentioned before in our previous video that actually with the same salary, one can actually loan much more for private property.
Yes.
So it really, as a buyer, you really need to think based on this, right? What is your better choice for you?
What are your options that you have in hand?
Correct. So it just means that let's say if you're looking to invest, right, then you can leverage more. With private properties. Hi everyone, welcome to Takeaway with Avenue 88, where we share insights from the real estate industry. I'm Chantel.
I'm Benny.
I'm Jackie.
And I'm Jason.
So today we continue from our previous topic for singles, right, 35 and above, looking to purchase a property. And for today, we will be covering things to note for private properties. If you missed out our episode on talking about HDB, right, you can watch it from the link here somewhere.
Okay, in the comment below.
You do not know where yet.
The
You
comment,
don't know yet, but you
Yeah.
will be there somewhere.
You will be like somewhere. Okay. So all right. So without further ado, let's just dive straight in. So I think the first thing that we want to talk about is the unique characteristic of private, right, versus HDB. So maybe Jason, you can.
Yeah. So if you check out our last video, right, we did mention that HDB there's an income cap, especially if you buy BTO, right? So for private properties, there's always no income ceiling, no income gap. And of course, buying private property will be a good choice. Let's say if you are considering like living in a place where there's facilities, and if you have a good choice, maybe you have a good location. Generally better capital appreciation, and there's no restrictions on rental as compared to HDB. When you buy MOP, when you buy a HDB, there's a 5 MOP. You cannot rent out the whole unit. For private properties, there's no restrictions on that. And the most important thing is that there's more flexibility to exit, because for HDB, 5 MOP. For private, there's only a 3 years SSD. But that doesn't mean that you can't sell the next day.
Yeah, if
You
you're
can
feeling
actually
rich, you can
if
sell
you're
on the
feeling
first
rich
year.
and there's some change of plans,
Yeah.
which I've seen some cases happening before. So there's some more flexibility for private properties, that's for sure.
Right.
So to touch on the SSD is 12% for the first year, 8% for second year, and 4% for the third year. So
Right.
like what Jason mentioned, you can actually buy with more flexibility. You can buy a unit that has existing tenancy already,
Yes.
and you can
correct.
start receiving rental income.
Exactly.
So you have
For like for some people, right, let's say if the capital already, the property already appreciate 30%, and for some urgent reason, like need to sell,
Correct.
then just
Can
Suddenly
sell
got
the
take
very
married,
advantage
next
of
day.
it.
and then
Yeah.
children coming.
Right,
Maybe
right.
bigger house.
Or the dream penthouse that he want to buy is a fire sale 30% below market value. Then it might make sense.
Right. Right. Okay, then the next I'll talk about the borrowing amount, like the MSR and TDSR again. So let's say for private property, and also it's the same thing with a 7K income, right? So you can borrow up to about 800 plus thousand. So the property price that you can buy is about 1 mil plus a bit, 1 point something. Then versus, like, let's say originally, like let's say for MSR with a 7K income, right? You can your loan is almost 400,000, 390 plus lah. And the property price is about 530. So this is like what we said, it's almost like double the
Correct,
borrowing
yeah.
amount.
So
Comparing a
mentioned
HDB
before-
and private, right?
Yes, that's
So
right.
it's mentioned before in our previous video that actually with the same salary, one can actually loan much more for private property.
Yes.
So it really, as a buyer, you really need to think based on this, right? What is your better choice for you? Actually?
What are your options that you have in hand?
Correct. So it just means that let's say if you're looking to invest, right, then you can leverage more. With private properties. Yeah. So speaking of investment, right? So when it comes to property, there is two ways that people do when it comes to investment. Either you like rent out the property or you sell the property for capital appreciation. So the nice thing about private property when it comes to rental, right, is that there's lesser restriction compared to HDB. So with private property, you have to just observe the rules from URA, which is like the maximum occupants that URA allows. So for right now, it is like maximum up to 6. Or like you can stretch up to 8 people, and then also the minimum lease period, right, which currently is 3 months. And also, right, for those who are really aggressive to get higher rental yield, you can also consider to build partition out more rooms to be rented out. And
This is something that I experienced just yesterday.
Yeah.
So for one of my viewings that I went to, it was a 1-bedroom unit. The living room space was actually big enough to carve out a partition to form a separate bedroom. So if you talk about the rental over there for 1 bedroom, it's about 3,500 to maybe 3,800. So the buyer's intention was to rent out the main bedroom, carve out another partition in the living room, and rent both out at a minimum rental of maybe 2,200. So in fact, if he do that, he's gonna get a much better rental yield eventually
So
comparing
total
to
rent will be how much like that?
4,400.
Wow.
As compared
Comparing
to
to
the
3,600, but
Wow.
what he needs to do is to carve out a separate bedroom in the living area, which works out perfectly because his square wish aircon unit is there, and the main walk-in entrance, the dining area actually forms the living room,
Right.
the main entrance lobby.
So
which
the-
you
It's
can actually-
nothing new, but
Yeah.
which just few years during this
Correct.
few years period, especially during COVID, right? Co-living companies
Correct,
are out in the
correct.
market.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's why co-living can't work on HDBs because HDBs can't partition
Yes.
room. But
Correct.
for private properties, they partition like the living room or maybe living room carving out 2 rooms to actually maximize
As
the
long
rental.
as you meet the URA's
Right.
Correct.
guidelines.
The
Yes.
number of packs. So actually, to let the audience know, partitioning rooms in private property is not illegal.
Yeah.
As long as of course they fulfill the fire safety and everything. There is no illegal thing out of this. But Chantal is illegal it's not right
Okay.
in HDB.
No, it is not illegal to partition room in HDB, but you cannot construct partition room right to rent it out as additional
Okay,
rooms.
yeah, correct.
So of course for your own use, right? You have a big size living room. You want to partition it another room for your own use, right? That's fine, but you cannot rent it out for additional income in that sense.
That's the
Right.
Yeah.
flexibility for private properties.
Yes, that's
Correct,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. So with that, right, maybe when it comes to private property, the thing that people have to consider is that new launch or resale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Common
So
Common thing
question.
like BTO and resale.
Common question.
exactly. So maybe Jackie, you can
Yeah.
share more with us.
Okay, so let's say for new launch, definitely your outlay is lesser because of the progressive payment. Meaning to say, like, only when the developer built up to a certain stage, then you need pay the amount or the loan up to that stage only. So in a way, versus like a resale that you need to pay like 100% or during completion, it is much lesser compared to new launch.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, even like new launch, when you get the keys on the TOP day, right, you only pay up to 85% only. You can still stay for another year. After CSC, then you pay the 100% of the property value. So in a way, actually the mortgage or the interest amount actually is very little for new launch versus a resale unit.
And something to add on, when you are looking for resale, the options are out there for you to physically look at the units itself already. So you can actually plan on how you want to live in there or how you want to rent it out.
Yeah.
For new launch, you are actually looking based on floor plans.
Correct.
And if you look at both products separately, actually in today's market, new launch prices, let's say you are buying a new launch at about 1.5 mil, you can actually get a slightly bigger layout for
Definitely.
resale units out there. But also bear in mind the lease age, the management fees involved, and of course the whole thing about buying a private property end of the day, which is actually a better option for you.
Yeah. So like let's say for new launch, then definitely is the same amount. I mean same amount in terms of quantum.
Yep.
But then your monthly outlay is much lesser,
Yes.
at least for the first 3 years
Correct.
during the construction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So I think for new launches, right, if there is new launches with a very attractive entry price, then it provides like an opportunity for capital gains. So that means that, right, when the project complete or even before, slightly before the project complete, right, you might be able to sell it for profit already. And this is a good stepping stone, right, for those who are looking to just invest or like you want to upgrade to another property. And this is especially good for singles, right, who are living with your parents and you don't mind continue to live with your parents, like continue to
Yeah.
live with your parents. Then it is really a good opportunity for you to capitalize on this option because you do not have an opportunity cost of like renting while
Yes.
the property is being constructed. And
Yeah.
something that I observed recently, like when I bring buyers around for viewing, just in this recent months, right, is that because this recent month there's a lot of like brand new condos that have TOP. And then so the thing that we always have to weigh out between like the brand new condos versus like the older ones, say like those who are built maybe 15 years ago, right, is that the newer ones is a more compact size.
Correct.
Definitely.
Then the those who are built like maybe 15 years ago, right, is a larger size. So maybe for the same budget, you have these two options, right?
Correct.
So a very interesting thing that I observe, right, is that I used to think that people always want very large size, but having a walkthrough with my buyers looking for own stay, right, I realized that like after comparing the two, people are actually receptive towards like the smaller sizes, right, because the vibe of the newer condos is simply like more attractive. Like the facilities look nicer, the feel of it also feel fresher.
The
Which
lobby got
is-
aircon.
Yes,
Everything is
very-
more up to date.
It's very interesting because I have this buyer who was looking for a place for own stay. Then at first he told me that he want to settle for nothing lesser than like a big four bedroom kind of a
Size,
layout.
Right.
Then we went to see like an integrated development that's quite new in a quite a central location, right? And it was just a 3-bedroom. So I told him like with the budget that we have, right, we can only look at the 3-bedroom. So you have to be prepared for it. So he went to look at it, right, and he really liked it. And then he really want to make it work.
He likes the convenience.
Yes,
right?
he likes the convenience and the newness of it. So
Yes.
even though like we seen like a larger property in older condos, right? But he still find very attracted to it. So I thought like that is something interesting to note for singles, right, who is looking to invest. Because if you are looking for a property that is easy to exit, right, probably newer properties is easier to exit. But of course, there's other factors that you have to
Correct,
consider.
yeah.
But like if all the factors are the same, like maybe similar location, right, then the newer properties tend to be easier to sell as well. Yeah, but of course, layout also plays a part. Yeah, so I thought that's something to note. Yeah, so with that, we move to like considerations.
Yes.
Like since I'm talking about this, right? So when it comes to investment or creative planning, right, what are the considerations that you guys think we should really share with the listeners?
I think first of all, we need to look at the realistic options for like, let's say
Yep.
a 2-bedroom example. So a 2-bedroom these days, I think let's say for new launches, generally they are all around 1.5 mil.
Correct.
Plus minus.
Yes.
Yeah, even the one recent one in Lentor also about 1.5 plus or even 1.6 or even 1.7 million plus. But let's say for resale choice, then actually definitely is lower. Then also, but right now upcoming we have this Bloomsbury. I need to have some advertisements. So they are saying the 2-bedroom, the 2-bed 1-bath one starting from 1.3 million plus, less than 1.4.
Oh.
So actually
Very
that
attractive.
is
And we
really
just saw the floor
attractive.
plan just
price,
now.
Yeah.
This is for 500 plus square feet.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
good, pretty
Correct.
decent. You have
Yeah.
a lot of good space to go
Correct.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's quite
So
good.
although on paper it looks a bit small, like only 500 plus square feet, but because this one is the
Harmonized project.
correct post harmonization, so actually the size actually quite okay.
Quite
It's got about
reasonable.
Yeah.
600 plus.
So I think
kind
this
of
one also
feeling.
brings back to like what you mentioned just now. Like actually now if you step into the newer condos, actually you will feel so much different compared to the older
Yes,
resale.
it
The
does feel
vibes.
quite
Yeah,
different.
the vibes, everything. Like the aircon. I mean, in the lobby there's aircon, and then
correct.
there's a certain aroma in the lobby and all. Yeah, compared to an older.
Everything is
older
just
resale.
newer lah.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the
Feels
way
just
they
different.
do the facilities, like
Yeah.
the whole feeling is just
much
more
more focused
classier, more updated
Yeah,
kind of feeling.
I mean,
Yeah.
like let's say older condos. No offense, like the swimming pool is not straight one. It's always like some round and weird figure. But then, like let's say for newer condo, usually they have a lap pool and everything. And then just now you mentioned Double Bay. There is some like what
Jam studio.
Jam studio,
Yeah,
and the
jam
things like
studio
Facilities
that.
are all
Yeah,
around.
yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
So some of the older projects actually you see like older facilities, even squash courts,
Which
that,
are
that
unused.
eventually
They
turn
actually
into
converted.
table tennis.
Exactly.
Into table tennis
Yes.
facilities.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think
Or
the
gym.
vibes of older condos very much depend on the maintenance also.
Yeah.
So
Right,
if the
correct.
maintenance is done properly, like some of the older condos, they do very good paintwork. The structure they maintain it very
Yes.
well. It still presents a very positive vibes for
Yeah.
for resale buyers to come in.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think with older condos, right, it's a matter of the architecture design because
Right.
there are some design style that is more timeless. Like with time, they are still in trend.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there are some that really with time, as time goes by, it just look tired lah. So that's why not say that like older properties is not attractive because there are also older properties, right? They continue to do very
Yeah.
well.
Right.
So I guess if one is looking to buy with an expectation of gains, right? Then you should choose something like where the design is more timeless one. Then
Yes.
you are more resilient with the
Yes.
times. Yeah.
Okay, then now moving on to actually another consideration is that what we discussed for the HDB portion is that, of course, if you actually buy a private property under your own name, you can actually choose to move your parents over to the private property. Or if you actually buy a private property for investment, then you continue staying with your parents and you can actually rent out the private property, which actually can get decent yield.
Right.
So actually I had a case where actually one of my clients actually bought a private property. It was a 2-bedroom, and they actually moved his parents over from the HDB to the private property. And the parents actually enjoyed themselves because there were actually facilities for them to like exercise in the pool,
Yeah.
and kind of facilities. We got gym them to actually keep them fit.
Then they can walk around.
Yeah,
the
more
condo and
grounds
all.
to walk
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
So it was actually quite an ideal option for the buyer. But let's say there's another option. Let's say if you buy a private property, say you buy a 3-bedroom,
Right.
and you choose not to rent out rooms, which you can actually rent out, which we discussed before. What you can do is actually to make some renovation works to actually convert certain part of the house into a dual key concept.
Right.
That actually you can actually rent out the studio, which actually one of my friends actually did that. They actually carve out a studio concept in a 3-bedroom condo. Then you can actually get a more higher rental income while have still privacy in your other parts of the house also.
Right.
In fact, for private property developers, they are already offering dual key options out there. If you choose not to carve out yourself, or
Yeah.
even like executive condominiums, there are also dual key options.
Yeah, quite a
So
lot
to name some
for
of
the
you,
risk.
maybe in Punggol Sengkang, you do see like ECs like Asperina,
Yes.
Heron Base,
Right.
Yeah.
offering dual key options.
Quite a lot.
So
Yeah, that's correct.
like what Jason mentioned, part of it can be rented out, part of it can be own stay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So also that's to take note that if you are buying for a single, right, we did mention this before in our HDB video, that if you do intend to settle down in the future, right, you may even want to start planning to buy a slightly bigger unit. Say maybe not a 1-bedroom or maybe at least a 2 or 3-bedroom, which we also discussed before in our past videos about first-time home buyers actually buying a larger unit. Because I had a case, right, let's say there's this, it's not my client, but it's a story that I heard that this client actually bought a 1-bedroom for investment and he was continuing staying with the parents. But then eventually he got married, got settled down, and actually wants to buy a bigger unit for homestay and family planning. And there were actually challenges for them to actually to sell the 1-bedroom because 1-bedrooms are generally harder to sell.
Yes.
So that's the recap that I think it's always better to buy a slightly bigger unit, like a
Right.
2-bedroom, 3-bedroom.
If financially
if
allows.
if allowed to actually give
Yeah.
you a better head start. If let's say for future planning.
True lah. And also like just to talk about let's say the cons of buying a private lah. So some regulation is that let's say after you own a private property, if you want to buy a HDB next, there's a cooling period so to speak. You need to wait for 15 months before you can buy the next HDB. And let's say if you are resale HDB, but let's say if you want to buy a BTO, then you need to wait for at least 30 months.
Or a brand new executive condo.
Yeah, or a new EC. Yeah. So now let's say for 1-bedroom, I would say that let's say for majority of the buyer who are investors, right? So why the 1-bedroom prices are not as good or didn't grow as high as a 2 or 3-bedroom, right? Mainly it's because most of the buyers of the 1-bedroom, they are investors. And usually investors, they only look at the rental yield. If the rental yield doesn't make sense, then why would they pay a higher price to buy your property? So like let's say we can take a typical, let's say 1-bedroom these days, at least 1.2 million for sure.
Around it.
Yeah. So let's say a 4% rental yield, that equals to about 48,000 per year. So that is equals about like 4,000 rental per month. So actually now these days for 1-bedroom to hit 4,000 rental, frankly speaking, not that many choices.
Correct. Yeah.
And especially if your quantum is still at 1.2 mil. Yeah.
Correct.
So that's why actually for 1-bedroom, we don't really see that the capital growth not as good as the bigger size units.
Right. And to really dive deeper into this, right? Remember when we always talk about rental yield, we talk about gross rental yield.
Yes.
If you want to really go into specifics, right? There's so many other things that we need to deduct. Which is
Yes.
your maintenance fee, which is
Right.
already a hefty amount.
Yeah.
Your maintenance cost,
Your property
tax.
tax.
and your
Yes.
income tax portion, because all this is factored into it. So
Yes.
really, you just need someone, at least a real estate agent, to actually go into the sums to actually
Yeah.
tell you whether it's a more profitable option to actually.
Does
go
it
with
make
this
sense or
one.
not?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So I think with private properties, right, as much as there are opportunities that comes with it, there are also a lot of other things that you should take note of. So it's always important to have a clear picture of like what are your short-term and long-term plans and goals, and then with your knowing your budget well before you dive into it. I think that is really important.
I
So I
think,
think-
sorry, I think one more important thing to add is that for private, comparing to our previous podcast for HDB, you are restricted to the 35 years of age. For private properties, actually,
correct,
when
yeah.
you hit legal age of 21, you can actually go out and buy already.
Legal
Yeah,
age
yeah.
to buy.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
this is something that we want to highlight. It's not restricted to just
True.
35 years of age.
True.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I think recently we do see like quite a lot of younger buyers,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
In the market.
yes. So
Millennials.
millennials.
The IC
Younger
start with
millennials.
T.
Yeah. Even
Very
the
young.
Zillennials also,
Yeah.
Zillennials also can
The
start
IC
to
start
buy.
with T
already.
Correct.
already,
Those those that can start
Yeah.
early, they would have done so.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
So then private property is actually a good place for those who can start early to really start accumulating capital appreciation.
That's right.
Yeah.
So actually, if you're a viewer for our videos, we actually did we did HDB back then at private estates. I think sometimes it's good to actually hear options from your parents and for people around you. But I think getting insights from a professional real estate agent will actually help you make better decisions because we don't just actually sell houses. We don't just recommend houses. It's all about planning. It's about short-term, long-term goals, budgeting. What is your potential pitfalls that you actually get, so that this actually allows you a better decision making, whether you're buying a HDB under a single or under a private property.
Yeah, so I agree with Jason. I think sometimes when there is a lot of information that is out there, especially right now, we really live in time where there is information from all places. So I always believe in this, like when the information gets too overwhelming, right, then we look at the hard numbers and then we make our decision, right, based on the numbers rather than sentiments. I think that is very important. Yeah, so especially when it comes to private property, right, if you compare it with HDB, usually you will be spending like a higher amount on it. So
Right.
I think all the more you really have to make you need to know very clearly like what you are buying into. Yeah, so with that, before we close for today, any more last things that you guys want to add in?
I think for the two segments that we talk about, there are still more to explore, like what Jason mentioned. For singles out there, if you want to find out more, it's good to contact one real estate salesperson to help you and guide you through the entire financial planning process. What are the options out there for you? So which is better? So we don't just restrict that you have to buy a HDB or private. Sometimes you don't even have to do anything at your present moment. So we have to sit down and go through all this in detail with you.
Okay, then for me, I will feel that actually affordability is very important. So yes, of course, who doesn't want to buy a bigger place and a 5 bedroom straight away, right? But end of the day, I feel you should get something that you don't overstretch yourself.
Yes.
Then you don't have to pay everything while you stress over the installment and things
Yes.
like that. So I feel something, work out the numbers.
Yeah.
Look at the plan and then see like what are the options that you have in hand. I think that one very important.
Correct.
Yeah.
For me, it's more about timeline planning. I think it's very important not to just see the short term, but
Yeah.
to long term, and to actually bring all stakeholders into the discussion. It could be your parents, it could be your potential girlfriend, wife to be, or vice versa. It could be your
Boyfriend
husband,
and
boyfriend.
all, yeah.
To actually make a more sound decision that we want to see much ahead. Not just the first few years, but the next 5 or 10 years is what's going to happen. Family planning comes to play, whether you want kids, what's the size of the houses, which we discussed before in a past video. So all these are very important considerations that you should go into it.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I think for myself, having served quite a number of singles for the past few years, right? I do notice this trend whereby like I think what I appreciate is that there are some singles that they actually bought like their first property when they are younger. Then after that, they can progress their property, right, as they grow in their career. Yeah, so I thought that is something that is very heartening. That I think there is no stress to like overstretch to go and want to buy something that is very expensive. I think always start with something that is manageable. Then
Right.
after that, you just have to wait for the right opportunity, right? Then you can upgrade to the next better property that you like. Yeah. So I like what Jackie said. I think at the end of the day, it's about entering to a property, right, which you can hold for the long term, because the property cycle actually move up and down. So it's always important that even if it's a low cycle, right, you are able to hold on to your property and not panic. Yeah. So with that, right, I think that will be all for today.
Yep.
And we hope that what we share today is of value to you. And indeed, if you need any advice or you have any questions, right, feel free to PM us or even just drop a comment below and we'll be happy to help you. And if you find this helpful, you can share it with a friend. Do remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.